Hello, and welcome to the Stellantis Tech and AI podcast. I'm Dale Jewett, your host. And in this episode, our guest is Sanjiv Ghate, who is the CEO of Mobilisights, the data as a service unit of Stellantis. Welcome, Sanjiv.
Thank you, Dale.
And also joining us today, back for more after our last podcast episode on vehicle connectivity, is Charlie Cross, who is the Global Chief Module Engineer for Connectivity and Over-the-Air Updates. That man has the longest title in our company. Good to have you back, Charlie.
Thanks, Dale. I'm glad to be back. I like talking about data, and I just didn't get enough from last time, so I'm back to talk some more.
We are happy to have you back. So, Sanjiv, to try and help set the table for this conversation, can you give me just like the 2-minute pitch on what is Mobilisights and what does it do?
Absolutely. So as you did the introduction, Mobilisight is a data as a service unit for Stellantis. Mobilisight is also an autonomous independent company that works within Stellantis Group. The genesis of Mobilisight was recognition and realization that two big trends are happening in the industry. Number one, more and more vehicles are getting connected. That means we have ability to transmit data in near real time. That opens up several applications and possibilities. The second big trend is more and more cars are getting smarter in terms of the amount of instrumentation they have, the devices they have, the software they have, and we at Stellantis are doing all those things and bringing the connected, highly connected car park forward. That brings us to a point where there is an opportunity with our volume and penetration of cars in the market to put that data to good use in a privacy consented fashion. That's really what Mobilisight is all about.
I imagine as a customer too, as a retail customer, a lot of the services and products you're building at Mobilisights benefit them directly as well, not just as a data collection, a data aggregation, but we're actually bringing value directly to the end customer. So what are some of the examples of those types of benefits that we're bringing?
Absolutely. You're absolutely right, Charlie. So let's take some of the common examples that improve our ownership or driving experience. You have a car that is, you have lo and behold, you have some flat tires, right? It's a typical case of roadside assistance. In the United States, if you call AAA will ask you all sorts of questions to understand what is happening with your car. With the user's consent, perhaps some of that data can be supplied to the AAA or to the roadside assistance company so that they can send the right truck. Often the questions they will ask you, is it a two-wheeler or a four-wheeler? Because that depends or that changes what kind of tow truck they're going to send you. So a lot of that information, is it a battery failure or not? Is it a diagnostic information about the car in general can be transmitted again with the user consent so that you get a better service as a consumer. And there are several of these use cases I'm sure you have heard of. Personalized insurance, roadside assistance, maybe it can be layered into predictive maintenance so you don't have to even have an experience of a failure. The car can, the service provider can tell you that, Charlie, your car is running low on battery or something is not right and you should take it to a service center. So, and we are just scratching the surface. You can imagine all sorts of benefits you can provide to user in terms of services that can, again, improve how they drive, their mobility experience, their ownership experience, and many more to come.
Yeah, I think one great example we worked on was detecting a flat tire, a very simple use case for us. And there's a million better ways to solve that customer problem than have them rifling through a 80-page user manual in their glove box. We can detect it and then manage that negative experience with the customer and turn it into a positive one. So it's really good stuff.
There is a large amount of data generated at the vehicle level. How do you decide what data is most interesting to you or most germane to what you're doing?
It's a great question, Dale. And again, that question maps back to what kind of problems users are trying to solve for and what kind of benefits they are seeking. So how much a car can generate? Car can generate a lot. But what we are interested in as a data as a service is what do we need to power a use case that enables user to take care of his day-to-day problems or business. Back to Charlie's example, right? If somebody is looking for information about the flat tire, then the information that you need is really the air pressure. You don't need any other information and some other relevant attributes so that a service vehicle can go and fix Charlie's tires, bring a right tire if they need to, so that their job can be done very quickly. So the number of data is large, but the number of data that we actually need or use is specific to what the user is looking for. In case of roadside assistance, we talked about tire. In some other use cases, it may be the fuel level. In some other cases, it may be the brake pad traction. We have done some interesting use cases where collectively the slippage data from thousands and thousands of vehicles can begin to tell you, are there really poor roadways, or is there a sleet condition on certain parts of the roadways, so that the utility trucks can be sent to clear the ice on the road. So there, again, the data is specific to use case, and that's how we look at data. We don't bulk pull the data. The data is pulled only for the use cases that user has consented to.
Okay, I see. To switch gears for a minute, Sanjiv, I mean, because we've been kind of sort of internally looking, mobility looking here, but from what I understand, Mobilisights also a big part of what you do is to try and take data and you make it available on subscription or for fee basis to other outside entities. What kind of other entities are interested in mobility data?
Yeah, so great question. So if we look at the market as a whole, Dale, we divide the market into 3 or 4 different classes of applications and services. One large sector that is obviously closer and really up and running is the fleet sector. There are a lot of fleet operators who have fairly large amount of fleets. We are talking about thousands, 10,000, even 100,000 vehicles. Imagine operating such a fleet in anything less than automated fashion. A simple act of looking at all the vehicles, where they are being routed, what do they need, which vehicle needs a repair, which vehicle needs to be refueled, which battery operated vehicle is running low on battery. All these use cases require managing a large fleet of vehicles, and those fleet operators, either directly if they have an in-house fleet management systems or through fleet management system solutions provider, can utilize this data, supply it to them via Mobilisight cloud to cloud, integrate that data in their system, and what can they do with it? They can make their fleet more productive. They can make their drivers drive safely. They can take care of all the compliance issue, all without really incurring a very heavy operational overhead of going to each vehicle, doing something specific to it. This is all cloud to cloud. This is on the internet. And that's really where we are adding efficiency and productivity in their operation. The whole other sector, we talked about B2B2C, we talked about roadside assistance, we talked about insurance companies. These services are still emerging. So again, these classes of service provide specific personalization service to you, the user, with your consent for that specific. Then the third class of the service that we are looking into is really a service where aggregated anonymized data can create better infrastructure, better traffic information, all those services where really it's not about personalization of the service, but using the power of numbers to bring together an analytics view for you to really look at it in a global picture or in a regional fashion.
Okay, I'm curious. So does Mobilisights, so analyzing data takes some time.
Mhm.
Is that a big focus of what Mobilisights is offering, or does live data also fit into your plan, and is there a mechanism where live data helps your analysis?
Yeah, so it's not either or, it's actually both. If you think about what Mobilisight is doing, one of the key things that we add to the table, Stellantis has 14 different brands in our company. Ability to create a normalized view of this data, even in a near real-time fashion, is an important part so that our end customer, maybe is a fleet operator with several of our brands in the fleet, does not need to spend time normalizing, harmonizing data, but can focus on the business logic. So there is some amount of harmonization, normalization always there. Data can be supplied in real time so that, or near real time, so that they can respond to field situations quickly. As you go to the other end of the spectrum, Mobilisight does have ability to analyze a large amount of data and provide insights. So there is a difference between providing basic data, harmonized fashion on one end versus providing a large data, but this time in a very distilled fashion in terms of the insights so that that insights can translate into actionable decisions. Actionable insights leads to decision, could be infrastructure decision, could be traffic decision, could be where do we want to build a parking structure decision. All sorts of decisions can be done when we provide an aggregated analyzed view.
Okay. Uh, and to be clear, because I think sometimes it's easy to be very centric on North America. Mobilisights, this we're talking data from the global car park because we have Stellantis vehicles around the world.
Absolutely. So our data platform that we have built is a global data platform. Clearly, in terms of the connected vehicles or availability of the connected vehicles, North America, US, and Western Europe are very mature market in terms of the sheer number of connected vehicle car park that is on the road today. That doesn't mean that other markets are behind. They are also coming up. So if you look into Middle East, if you look into Australia, if you look into India, if you look into Brazil, these markets are really coming up. They are getting a lot of connected vehicles. So we expect those services to start rolling into these markets. The platform is designed for global support. Market is multiple markets are, we're looking at multiple markets to come up next.
Okay. So and we've talked as Stellantis before, where we're in the midst of this very important transition to become more of a mobility tech company, and part of that means that we're transitioning, many of our technology platforms to a new generation. For example, the Stella Brain, the Stella Auto Drive, and the Stella Smart Cockpit capabilities that we're building. But kind of leads me to think, as you sit here today, is do you know, is there some types of data that would possibly be, on a vehicle that maybe you can't get access to today that maybe these next generation platforms will enable you? I'm kind of curious. Is there some data that you can't get yet?
Um, Maybe I want to invite Charlie in this conversation, but in general, my thinking here is the cars are going to get more and more sophisticated. See, when you have more sophistication on the board in the car, one of the things that I'm eagerly looking forward to is a lot of compute and AI capabilities on board in the car.
Hmm.
That significantly helps in terms of minimizing the data transfer. You can analyze a large amount of data on the car, but transmit only the information. A simple example, and some of this is already in the practice today. You could be capturing a road sign, right? You do not want to really transmit the image of the road sign. You want to transmit that this is actually a road sign that is showing, let's say, 65 miles per hour or 50 kilometers per hour as the speed.
Mm-hmm.
So some of that tech exists today. I expect a trend along that line where more and more capabilities can be built on in the car, inside the car, on the board, so that we can minimize the data transfer between car and the cloud.
Yeah, it's a good example, and couldn't have said it much better. Another great example is the one we talked about earlier with usage-based insurance, right? So one of the main things we're trying to figure out with usage-based insurance is can we offer a discount in the customer's insurance based on safe driving practices? Well, that's sort of a simple question and answer, but there's a lot of complex signals that are collected from the car to answer that question. And it's expensive, right, to do that. But with AI, instead of pulling all of these disaggregated data to the cloud and analyzing it at a high cost, why not push AI down to the car and let AI decide, and then send you very simple information? Is the customer driving safely? Is the customer comfortable? These types of complex ideas that are simple for a human to think about are hard for a traditional computer process algorithm to think about, but it's something we can do with AI. And you're going to see more and more of that in our cars as we push that down, especially with the Stella Brain platform.
I'm curious, Sanjiv, are we in a leadership position in the industry with the way that we're treating data and what Mobilisights is trying to do? Because I just don't have a sense if our automotive competitors are trying to do the same thing.
Different OEMs have taken slightly different route to this thing. I would say that on the privacy and data governance front, we are the best, or we are as good as anybody else. And we take that part seriously, and we are being very, very regimented and very clear about what data we can collect, what data we can share. I described to some of that earlier in the segment. There are other OEMs, I won't name names, who have put in some more efforts in, let's say, insurance as a sector, and they have created special programs to support that as a use case. There are some other OEMs who until recently had companies and were supplying data to market through those companies. What we have done here is try to create best of both worlds through Mobilisight. We are still part of a larger group. We have still the same strong data privacy protection, all the policies, but at the same time, we have created a more of a startup culture, a startup autonomy to bring the benefits to market quicker and faster. Is that unique? It may not be unique, but it is not a common practice the way we have built the company and the way we have approached this. This is certainly a more agile way of building the products, building the data products, while at the same time staying within the larger umbrella of Mobilisight, of Stellantis as a group, adhering to all the policies and making those two things work in tandem.
So, as we look into the future and we talk about Stellantis and a tech mobility company, I think we also realize that in the future, our vision of mobility expands or grows a little. The last mile, in some places, mobility may mean a scooter for part of your trip before you get. Do we crave data on those different types of mobility devices other than just automobiles, which is kind of what we think solely about today?
I think ultimately, if you ask me, everything has to start from the user's journey and bring it in. If our user has a journey that begins to go from car and go then into, let's say, multimodal transportation, and the user goes from car to, let's say, take a local transportation or a train, for example, then how do we support user through the journey? That's really the key question. For Mobilisights, we are more about enabling the services. We are a data as a service. So we would like to work with partners who are helping users along the way and supporting the user's end-to-end journey, whatever she is doing, and whatever the services that she wants to use. To the extent the consent part is clear, we want to support those services.
Okay. So we've talked about, and I've heard a couple of examples that really kind of honed in on how data as a service could help infrastructure, because it provides us good feedback on what's going out there on the highways, and nobody can be there everywhere at the time. Sanjiv, are there other industries that you would love to be able to get in contact with that you think, the type of data that we have to offer could be beneficial to them? You don't have to name specific company, but I'm curious if there's other industries that might benefit from what we're doing.
Absolutely. And I think if you take a step back, it's also strategically important that we think data holistically. What I mean by that, what the data we have is really data that our vehicles can collect and tell us about. Other industries may benefit from this data. We talked about infrastructure. There are also industries that produce different kinds of data that taken together with our data can actually produce a better picture. I will give you a couple of simple examples. Uh, you can get crime statistics from any city.
Hmm.
It would be very interesting to see how the traffic patterns and the crime patterns correlate. You can look at accidents, you can correlate, right? You can think about, let's say, financial data. How is the auto mobility patterns align or not align with where users go and spend money? So at a macro level, you can begin to combine data. Again, this is all aggregated and anonymized data, but you can begin to combine data and see what is the data collectively telling us. And then where do we go help user make her life better? Or where we help cities to plan better infrastructure. Simple thing. We should be able to look at electric charging behavior and observe that users are waiting much longer in a particular charging station. That would indicate to you that, oh, there is something missing and the city should plan another charging bank of charging station somewhere else to relieve the congestion on this thing. So there are several attributes or several things we can do just using car data or vehicle data. There are several things we can do by layering the vehicle data with other data sources. That's why I say we are just beginning to scratch the surface here, and the possibilities are really enormous.
Okay. Charlie, is there any data that Sanjiv can provide to help you?
Well, I think it's actually the other way. I think I always ask Sanjeev that question. But thinking 5 years ahead, Sanjeev, I know we're scratching the surface. I hope we're maybe at a few levels deeper on the iceberg by then. What do you see? In 5, maybe even 10 years down the road, with these data products and where they're going. I know we talked about smart cities, we talked about Stella Brain and stuff, but what's your utopia, your dream that you have for Mobilisights and our products here with Stellantis?
We are in a new industry in a way, in the sense that people are not fully aware of what is possible. If you think about industries such as fleet industries, they are really up to speed with it because they are running a real business with hundreds of thousands of cars. They understand the value of data, they know what to do with it, and they are putting it to good use through their services. When you think about B2B2C or services that are supporting retail customer, we have not even begun. And that's where I think the opportunity lies. How many services you can create that benefit end customer in a real fashion. And honestly, that's the sky is the limit. There are so many things we could do. So if you go 5 years out, if you are thinking that much out, it would be fantastic to see dozens and dozens of services that are uniquely helping customers through some offering. Look at the data and make sure that the data gets used in a consented fashion for sure, but also solves the real problem. We talked about insurance. We talked about roadside assistance. We talked about predictive maintenance. There are there should be dozens of such services that can use data. And again, the goal is always to help the end user or the end customer to benefit from it. Uh, it may be a good idea right now to also put in a plug for our app marketplace inside the car. We announced that product recently, and think about all the services that not only we can provide data for, but can also bring those services back into our own car, into our vehicles, so that they are at the fingertips for the users to use. So other vision in that sense is having a very vibrant marketplace for services and applications sitting in all our touch points with the user, be it in the head unit or through our Stellantis applications, that are not only table stakes applications like Spotify, everybody will use Spotify, but services and applications that are uniquely leveraging vehicle data, because that's where our true differentiation and value creation will lie.
All
I'm
right.
glad you mentioned the App Store because it makes me think back to the original iPhone, 2007, no App Store. And
Mhm.
try to, for those of us who had an iPhone 1, right? I actually had one, and I'm trying to remember what it was like to have an iPhone with the same 12 apps that were provided by Apple, and there was no way to download more. And that's kind of where we were with connected cars for a while, and we're getting out of that, and now we're having this sort of ecosystem, or I'll say, since we're Stellantis, I'll say we have a galaxy now of a constellation of wonderful tools and services for our customers. So it's really cool to see us moving into that direction.
Yeah, and I think Charlie, you hit on a very important point. If you think about Apple or Google Android ecosystem, the realization at 1.0 was okay, these are all homegrown applications. But if you think about broadly now, for every application or service that, let's say, Apple provides, there are thousands more that somebody else is building. So as we map out our
Exactly.
software data vision, the key thing for us, both from the platform side as well as from the data side, is to enable creation of those services, which is what we are trying to do working with external service provider, but also to bring those external service provider inside the marketplace. That's really where we have a nice 360 degree, where these are services that uniquely use data, therefore can be highly personalized and are accessible if the user chooses to access them on a mobile phone, great, but also accessible in a more in-vehicle, as part of an in-vehicle integrated experience.
All right, now you guys got me excited about the future. I appreciate that. This seems like a good spot to wrap this one up. So, Sanjiv Ghate, the CEO of Mobilisights, thank you so much for taking the time to help make me smarter about everything that you're trying to do. And Charlie Cross, thank you for joining us again, because you have a great insight into how we're trying to build this ecosystem and make things more fun and powerful inside our vehicles, and in the end make our vehicles a more seamless extension of our daily lives, if I'm hearing you guys correctly. So, and thanks you for listening to the Stellantis Tech and AI podcast, where we speak with some of the brightest minds in the tech and automotive industries. We invite you to follow Stellantis Tech and AI on LinkedIn and Instagram to join the conversation, stay updated on what's ahead, and be a part of the community exploring the fast line of technology and AI in the automotive world. We'll see you again soon.